Power to the truth. This is Margo. This is Monday, April 22nd, 2019, 6:41 p.m. Pacific Time, United States of America. So we're going to go over some climate news. I've got a couple of articles that I want to share, and then we're going to go over earthquakes. So the big news is the 6.1 that happened in the Philippines earlier today, this morning, and not sure how many people are confirmed dead, but they know at least 3 people were dead in this one building that collapsed. And this is from the LA Times. A strong earthquake in the Philippines killed 3 people and trapped others on Monday in a collapsed building that housed a supermarket in a northern province where an international airport terminal was closed due to damage, officials said. So I'll show you where this happened. I'll show you this big circle right here on the map. So it was a USGS is calling it a 6.1 near Gutad, Philippines at 2:11 this morning Pacific time. When you zoom in, it was on land, and there was an airport not too far away, so that's the airport that was affected. And here's Dina Lupihan, here's Harmonica, here's Florida Blanca, San Fernando, Angeles is over there. So that's kind of what we're looking at. Here's Manila. So it wasn't in Manila, it was across the way from Manila. People are saying it's 6.1 at Manila. No, it was not at Manila. It was not that far away. It looks like, according to this scale, maybe 40 miles. So that's where we're talking about, and it was on land. An Associated Press photographer saw a 3rd survivor and the body of a woman being extricated by rescuers from the rubble late Monday. The pace of the rescue work picked up after 4 cranes arrived at the scene, where Red Cross volunteers, police, and soldiers helped out. A child was one of the 2 dead people pulled from the rubble earlier in the day, and so on. So, the USGS's preliminary estimates is that more than 49 million people were exposed to some shaking from the earthquake, with more than 14 million people likely to have felt moderate shaking or more. People said that the ground moved like waves, and it will, especially when you have one that big. There were reports that the earthquake left at least 8 people dead in the this province, and it's a rice-growing agricultural region, but could not provide details. Cell phone signals were erratic in the province. The quake also damaged an airport terminal at Clark Freeport, a former U.S. Air Force base, and an old Roman Catholic church in Pampanga, and caused cracks in the highways and bridges. Clark Airport was closed temporarily because of damaged check-in counters, ceilings, and parts of the departure area. 7 people were slightly injured and more than 100 flights were canceled. In Manila, hundreds of office workers dashed out of buildings in panic, some wearing hard hats, and residents ran out of houses. Dozens of aftershocks were recorded. So, there's that article that I will leave below. I have another article about the earthquake. This is a report from Volcano Discovery on their website. They report on earthquakes too. They show it as a 6.0. And right down here on the map, now it's showing as a 5.9 over here, but it says strong magnitude 6.0, Luzon, Philippines on Monday at 9:11 UTC time. And the depth they're saying is 10 kilometers. That seems to be the default depth when USGS doesn't really know how deep it is, or they don't want to say. So there are a bunch of pictures on this report on this web page showing damage. Look at the crack in that wall and see there's damage here from the wall and the tile coming down. And all these are reports of what people felt. Here at Mabalacat City College, strong shaking, typical college scenario wherein lots of students having their own businesses around the college campus. That time we were waiting, sitting at the second floor corridor when the quake happened. We all rushed down towards the campus open grounds for the quake to stop and wait for further instructions. Here's one, 86 kilometers from the epicenter, moderate shaking. That one's not in English. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm not going to try and get that translated right now. Here's one at Maravellas. Moderate shaking, heard rumble and felt shake and see some things swaying, then loss of power. Barangay, Kasalawan, Makati City. All of us in the office felt it. We thought some heavy cargo was just passing through, but it was weird enough that the pipelines and lights start shaking. Here's one, moderate shaking, 49 kilometers from the epicenter. Moderate shaking from Manila. 23rd floor, the Enterprise Center, Makati City. Very strong shaking. It was almost done for work. I was just finishing some of the official receipts that I will be releasing when the shaking started. There was no slow or a transition shake to a very shaky one. It was strong as it started. We all panicked that when the earthquake was done, about 2 to 3 minutes, we straightly went to the fire exit. I think I'd go to the fire exit too. So, there were lots and lots of reports, so I'll leave the link below if people want to check out these comments from people who were at the scene. I find them interesting. Here's some more damage, just parts of the wall, the plaster just coming down. Here's a bunch of dirt up in the air from Quezon City, weak shaking. I'm sitting in a room and I felt that the floor is shaking, and I think it lasts 5 to 20 minutes. I just thought that it's just me, but it is confirmed to be an earthquake when my teacher and fellow classmates tell each other via internet. There's a picture of people out in the streets. where they came out of the buildings. Here's a bunch of damage. Look at this foundation that just got all cracked up. And whatever building was there, it's not there now. Here's one from Mabalacat City. The house was shaking up and down and burst into horizontal. People are shouting and crying as the ground was shaking, and we cannot even able to stand. So they were near the worst part. See, look how many people wrote in. Here's another picture of people outside. We saw that picture before. Look at these cracks on the outside of the building there. So it caused a lot of damage. We'll see other reports as well as time goes on. Look at this. I don't know where that is, but it looks like it's outside and a park, some kind of park area, and it just came down, whatever it was. And that's it. So that was the first one. The next article I'm going to share is also about earthquakes. Has to do with California. This is from ubanet.com. This is from the 19th of April. Scientists identify almost 2 million previously hidden earthquakes. So this is coming down through the center of California. See how red that is? April 19th, 2019. Pouring through 10 years worth of Southern California seismic data with the scientific equivalent of a fine-tooth comb, Caltech seismologists have identified nearly 2 million previously unidentified tiny earthquakes that occurred between 2008 and 2017. Their efforts, published online by the journal Science on April 18th, expand the earthquake catalog for that region and period of time by a factor of 10, growing it from about 180,000 recorded earthquakes to more than 1.81 million. The new data reveal that there are about 495 earthquakes daily across Southern California, occurring at an average of roughly 3 minutes apart. Previous earthquake cataloging had suggested that approximately 30 minutes would elapse between seismic events. Well, that sheds a whole new light on the little earthquakes and the tremors and the swarms, doesn't it? What does this title say? It says seismic activity associated with the Kauai earthquake swarm. We know where that is. In Southern California's Anza Valley, filling out the earthquake catalog using template matching shows the swarm in greater detail. The color of each seismic event records its depth, and so the rainbow-like appearance of the swarm indicates the shallow to deep slant of the fault not previously visible from earlier data. We know where Kauai is. We can go there right now. I know exactly where that is. I wouldn't have if I hadn't been doing these earthquakes all the time. It's right in here. Right here. Here's Kauai Indian Reservation, and they always have these clusters here every day, and this is Anza. This is the whole Anza area. So it's this region here that they're talking about. This tenfold increase in the number of recorded earthquakes represents the cataloging of tiny tremblers between negative magnitude 2.0 or minus 2.0 and 1.7, made possible by the broad application of a labor-intensive identification technique that is typically only employed on small scales. These quakes are so small that they can be difficult to spot amid the background noise that appears in seismic data, such as shaking from automobile traffic or building construction, or blasting. They didn't put blasting. So it goes on, they talk about the small earthquakes. So see, I was right where I said that the small earthquakes are important. They are important, and I'm surprised that California doesn't have more large earthquakes, considering. So then they go into the whole thing of how it works and all that. And this comes from a paper entitled Searching for Hidden Earthquakes in Southern California, and you can click there if you want to see that. And this research was funded by the National Science Foundation and the USGS. So the bottom line is they're trying to learn to see what's happening with these little earthquakes and what happens before and after large earthquakes. See? So someone might be watching my channel and saying, hey, that Margo's onto something. Hey, let's go check out all these little tiny earthquakes that nobody ever checked out before. Hey, and I saw it in a dream. I saw it in the dream, and it was, the message was given to me in the dream that small earthquakes are important. And they're actually, in some ways, well, not to downplay the large ones, but they're almost more important than big ones, because they tear everything apart, like right there. It's just, it just eats away. It just eats away at everything. And our last article is from anchoragepress.com, and this is from April 16th, and the title is A Permafrost Meltdown in Alaska is Happening Now, and Rapid Changes Are Coming with It. Now, this is an interesting article, but I'm specifically presenting it in a video because Dave Alcock, aka Nostradamus, our friend from the UK, said that he could not view it because it's blocked. It's blocked in his country because of legal reasons. So I told him I'd show it in a video. So here is the map. It's hard to see. I'll just need to download it and blow it up. But these green squares are where the permafrost is melting, and that correlates with where the earthquakes kind of come down through the state. So the New York Times has it in big headlines: Alaska's permafrost is no longer permanent. It is starting to thaw. And about 30 years from now, by 2050, much of this frozen ground could be gone. So their sewage system and their houses and all their infrastructure, the roads will be all messed up. all that mining that they're doing up there, all the mines will be collapsing because it's all built on permafrost. They thought it was going to be permanently frozen, but guess what? It's not. And guess what? We're not going to make it to 2050, so it doesn't matter. But it does matter that, these people's infrastructure, their houses are falling down. I mean, it's going to be awful. It's going to be awful up there. It's going to happen with evidence that looks normal, but shows up as slumping ground, perhaps filled with water. And then methane's going to be coming up out of all of that. All permafrost in Alaska is a storehouse of ancient carbon. Yeah, we knew that. On a page of computerized graphics, the areas most likely to be impacted or become expanses of slumping ground are colored in red with the words, "This is what may be gone," printed over the photograph of the state, the whole state. Also printed in big letters is the warning, "The loss of frozen ground in Arctic regions is a striking result of climate change. It is also a cause of more warming to come." Yep, absolutely. They found permafrost is thickest in Arctic Alaska north of the Brooks Range, but it is found to some extent beneath nearly 85% of Alaska. That is a lot of land that is vulnerable to permafrost meltdown. The center also adds that on the Arctic coastal plain, permafrost extends as much as 2,000 feet below the surface and is found everywhere. Near Anchorage, permafrost is found only in isolated patches, and in southeast Alaska it is found only high in the mountains. The current permafrost meltdown is not reversible, but if it is, it would take another 100 years. And this guy, Rick Toman, this Alaska climate specialist, says, "We're feeling the effect first in climate change, and the most in Alaska," he said. "The rapid temperature rise is real, and we really have to take it seriously. The potential loss of land, cultural change, and lack of planning are going to have consequences. The escalator is going up the stairs." Toman added that in the Arctic we're out of time. We've already crossed that line. Villages are going to have to deal with rapid changes, and it may be time in rural Alaska to start moving to higher ground. Well, where do you go if it's all on permafrost? Some villages used to have good berry picking areas that have now changed and are either too dry or are too wet. Buildings that are starting to sink is another sign. New talk is moving. Shishmaref is looking for a new village site. This is a global event, and Toman said, adding that whatever happens in the near future is going to happen quickly. A permafrost meltdown comes at a time the governor of Alaska, Mike Dunleavy, has done away with the State Commission of Climate Change, and many in his Republican Party even deny that climate change is real. This also comes at a time when, for the first time in history, the Bering Sea has no ice from Dillingham in Bristol Bay to the Chukchi Sea. Local villagers in the impacted areas say they are worried about the future of hunting sea mammals like seals, whales, and walrus for sustenance. They're saying that the lack of sea ice is seeking to transplant a herd of reindeer to replace the loss of food sources available since time immemorial. So they're going to kill the reindeer instead of the seals. This is a scary time for us. With the lack of solid sea ice, the people of Savunga have to keep an eye out for walrus herds floating by on large ice floes. According to climate experts, warmer temperatures follow melting ice. As permafrost melts, it creates carbon dioxide from plant life that froze before it had a chance to break down. As more carbon dioxide reaches the atmosphere, it creates a greenhouse effect and traps more warm air on the Earth's surface, melting more permafrost. We know all about that. From viewing the map of Alaska with red areas indicating loss of land due to permafrost meltdown, almost half of the state could be marshy wetlands or underwater. Most of what is left appears to be mountainous regions and mountain tops. The New York Times report said the most vulnerable areas of the state are the vast lowlands along the Yukon and Kuskokwim rivers, where there are hundreds of villages, homes to thousands of Alaska Native people. It is hard to imagine that the landscape we now see and walk on, live on, and have been culturally tied to for centuries could be gone. The scientists who studied the frozen ground are from the Woods Hole Research Center in Falmouth, Massachusetts. In the report, senior scientist Max Holmes is quoted as saying, "This has all kinds of consequences, both locally for this region, for the animals and the people who live here, as well as globally." And that's the end of the article. So there you have it. So, see, it's coming down all the way through there. And this green area, all of that, all of those green areas. These browns are the mountain ranges that will be least affected. But all those green areas are going to go. So eventually we're all going to go the way of the dodo bird. So there you have it. So I will leave links below to these things. Oh, and if you want to see what the Oroville Dam is doing, let's see the latest level. Let's see if they've got 7 o'clock up yet. The latest level is 873.28 feet. And I'm tracking this, so I have to record this right now. .28. This is the hourly thing. It's going up. So 873.28 minus, and at midnight last night it was 872.27. So since midnight last night it's gone up a little over a foot, 1.01 feet. And yesterday from midnight to midnight it went up 1.38 feet. So there's that for anyone who's interested. Now let's do our earthquake report. The USGS pulled up here for all magnitudes for the last 24 hours. We've got 255 earthquakes showing worldwide. Of those, 37 are 2.5 magnitude and higher, and you can see a lot of big dots around here. A lot of big dots, and then medium dots, a lot of medium dots too. So let's see what's going to come off the map. This first one at 6:59, this 4.7 near General Luna, Philippines. So let's go down here. I don't remember if I showed that last night or not. No, that's at 8:59. What am I thinking? So, that's okay. We got that. So, let's start down here in New Zealand and say hi to our friend Robin Westenra. This earthquake is not too far from him. This was a 4.5. I wonder if he felt it near Waiouru, New Zealand. This came in at 7:20 this morning Pacific time, 152 kilometers deep. And all these times I'm going to tell you are Pacific time because that's my time zone. Next, we've got 3 right up here. We've got a 4.5, Nidoi Islands, Fiji, at 4:13 this morning, 555 kilometers deep. That was very deep. And then a 4.9, Lombasa, Fiji, at 5:30 this morning. Another very deep one, 534 kilometers deep. And a 4.9 near Hihifo, Tonga, at 6:11 this morning. And the deep ones cause the plates to move around the planet. Now down here in Indonesia, 4.7, Batu Tering, Indonesia. At 11:49 last night, 100 kilometers deep. Now here's Bali, where that volcano was exploding. Next, 4.6, Luwuk, Indonesia, at 6:52 this morning. Next, 4.7, General Luna, Philippines, at 8:59 last night. And then here's this one on the Philippines, a 6.1 near Gutad, Philippines. This came in at 2:11 this morning Pacific time, 20 kilometers deep, according to USGS. That will cause damage, definitely. 4.9, Maritzo Village, Guam, at 2:42 this afternoon. And coming around this ring of fire at 4.7, Hachijo-jima, Japan, 9 o'clock this morning. 4.5, Kushima, Japan, 3:49 this afternoon. Here's a 5.4, Miyako, Japan, 10:45 this morning. Now all of these are in the ocean, so they didn't cause any damage, and they weren't big enough. There were no tsunami waves over here. So there's those. And coming on up into the Russia area off the coast of Kamchatka is a 4.7, Vilyuchinsk, Russia, at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Now coming on around this Arabian Sea, here is one on the red line, 4.7, Sur Oman, at 5:36 this afternoon. Next there was one down here near Mayotte. It's this little island right over here, and it's in between Madagascar and Mozambique, Africa. 4.5. Pamanzi Mayotte at 9:27 last night. Then, coming on around, here's this big one down in the South Atlantic Ocean. See, here's the tip of this western peninsula of the Antarctic. So it wasn't that far from it. 6.0 Visecoy Island, South Georgia, and the South Sandwich Islands at 7:49 this morning, 93 kilometers deep. Now that was in the ocean, and it didn't cause any damage, but that would have if it was on land. Next, in South America, we're seeing a 5.1 San Antonio de los Cobras, Argentina, at 11:29 this morning, 159 kilometers deep. Then moving on up to Central America and Mexico, we've got two on land in Mexico. We've got a 4.3 San Pedro Mixtepec, Mexico, at 3:19 this morning, and a 5.4 Coahuilapa, Mexico, at 1:15 this afternoon. So that 5.4 would be big enough to do damage if it was near any structures. Then, up here off the coast of Baja in the Pacific Ocean was a 3.4 Primo Tapia, Baja, at 3:19 this afternoon. So I think those are the international ones. So now we're going to switch to 2.5 magnitude and higher, and we're going to start with Hawaii, and we've got 5 here today. So I'll just call them off. 1.7 Waimea, 1.8, that's at Kilauea, 1.8 at Kilauea at a minus 1.1 kilometer depth, 2.4 Pahala, and 2.2 Pahala. So there's those. Next is the Dominican Republic. We're showing 8 here today. I'll call them off. A 1.6, 3.1, 2.4, 1.6, 2.6, 3.0, 1.9, and 1.9. So those were probably not even big enough to feel, but there they are. Now we're moving into Alaska. We've got 64 here today. Let's see how many of those are 2.5 magnitude and higher. We've got 7 that are 2.5 magnitude and higher. Where it starts down here at 3.6 Tanaga Volcano, 3.0 Kodiak, 3.2 Homer, 3.0 Anchor Point, 2.6 Talkeetna, and then we've got 2.5 Kobuk and 2.5 Kobuk. Now, let's look at 2.5 magnitude and higher. At Kobuk, we've got 21 here today. most of them have some depth. We still have some at surface level. And we saw those 2.5s, and here's a 2.2, 2.3, 2.1, and the rest are in the ones range. So there's mining going on up there. So up in northern Alaska, at Koktovik and Arctic Village, we've got 5 here. 1.8, 2.0, 1.2, 2.3, 1.8. We would see them just peppered around, and that's in the pattern of how those lakes were on that map coming down. So they're just moving on down through the state. Here's the Anchorage area. Here's that Cook Inlet, and so on. Now let's move on to the lower 48. And I want to start with these two here off the coast of Vancouver Island. We have 2 here, and these are right on this Juan de Fuca plate, which we talk about a lot, and it's right next to this Cascadia subduction zone. This is the Pacific plate, and this plate is in between the Pacific plate and the North Atlantic plate, and one is going under the other, and so they're causing a lot of earthquakes. And some geologists think that if enough pressure is put here and big enough earthquakes are put here, that this Cascadia subduction zone will fail, and then that would be catastrophic, because this whole area would go down. So, and some geologists think that if that fails, then that could trigger the Yellowstone event. So this is why we're watching these very closely. Here's a 4.6. They're calling it near Port Hardy, Canada. This happened at 1:27 this afternoon, and a 5.5 right next to it, right on this red line, at 2:44 this afternoon. I've already looked at this wave, and there's no tsunami warning there. Then, at the end of that Juan de Fuca plate, there was one, see, right here on this red line, 3.2. They're calling it Petrolia. Petrolia's the town over here on land. That's the reporting station, and this one came in at 4:21 this afternoon. So this is serious stuff. Lots of stuff is happening, and even the small earthquakes matter, like we saw in that article. Here, well, what am I doing? We've got 2 right here at Dayton, Tennessee, a 2.0 and a 2.3. Next, this is in the having a brain fart. This is in the hazard zone. I'm just having a brain fart. 1.6 and 2.5, Richley, Tennessee. And next, oh, this is New Madrid. That's in that New Madrid hazardous zone. Next, we've got one, it looks like it's in Arizona, 2.2, Meadview, Arizona, at 5:57 this afternoon, right at the surface, 0 kilometer depth. So this is Lake Mead, and here's Las Vegas and the surrounding areas. And I need to learn about the Hoover Dam. That's going to be my next project, I think, is to learn about the dam and where it is and all of that, so that we can get educated on that too. Right now I'm really following the Oroville Dam very closely. Okay, next, coming up here in Utah, we've got 1.3 at Farron, 1.8 Gunnison. Then it's eerily quiet up here in the Yellowstone area, and we're having activity up here in the Washington area. But if you want to see activity, in the last 24 hours, here's the tremor map. They've had 4.5 hours of tremors. And these are and they're all right up here by Seattle and on this Vancouver Island. And remember, those earthquakes were out here. So this is what's happening. In the last 12 hours, they had 8.6 hours of shaking. So that's well over half the time. So these are the harmonic tremors, and this is what's measured before it becomes an earthquake. And so this is an indication of movement, and movement of this Cascadia subduction zone. So here's Seattle. Here's where we saw the majority of those red dots, and then some up here on Vancouver Island. First thing we have is a 1.9 magnitude explosion near Granite Falls, Washington. Here's a 1.0 Eatonville, 1.2 Packwood, and 1.5 Columbia City, Oregon. And we've got a lot of volcanoes in this area. We've got Mount St. Helens, Mount Rainier, Mount Hood, and any of those could just come back to life. Just any time. It could just happen. Okay, now coming down into Northern California, just to give you some perspective, here's Oroville, here's the dam that we're monitoring this level of the lake, and they shut down the spillway about a week ago, and they'd used the new spillway, and so there's speculation what's going on over there, and I'm not going to get into it. There are other YouTubers talking about it, but the facts are that the lake level is rising. They're not using the spillway. They have crews out there on the spillway at night with big lights and stuff at night, and people who are watching the cams, the webcams, they don't see anyone out there working during the daytime. But as soon as it gets dark, crews get out there at night looking at the spillway and doing stuff, which makes no sense to me unless they're just not wanting people to see what they're doing. And the lake level is rising, so I guess they have a plan. But if I lived there, I'd have a plan, that's for sure. Here's a 1.0 East Quincy, California. Here's a 0.1, Truckee, California. And then here was a explosion, 1.4 magnitude explosion to the east of Reno and Sparks. It looks like this is near that Reno Tahoe Industrial Center where Elon Musk is, and Google and Switch and all those people building their city, their 5G city, whatever. This explosion happened at 6:28 this evening. That's kind of late for them to be blowing stuff up. And it was at surface level, 0 depth. Just they were working late, working overtime. Gotta blow it up on overtime. Okay, got a few coming down here. Here's Walker Lake. This is the Hawthorne area. Here's a cluster. What's 4 here at Gabbs, Nevada. 0.9 up to 1.3. And then here's a cluster down here at Beatty, or Goldfield. Goldfield again. 2.0, 2.1, those are the larger ones. Here's Southern Nevada. Here's a cluster near Pahrump, where Art Bell used to live. And he would broadcast from the high desert there, coast to coast AM. Right there, Pahrump, Nevada, from his compound. Yes. Yes, indeed. Okay, now let's come on into Long Valley, and we've got 17 here today. So it's picked back up. Most of them are right here, clustered right here. Let's just see what kind of magnitudes we've got. Most of them are under 1. The largest one is this 2.0 at Mammoth Lakes. From the high desert, this is coast to coast AM. 2.0 Big Pine. 1.9 Big Pine. 1.6 Big Pine. Here's a 0.8 Lone Pine, 0.6 near Beatty, 1.6 Little Lake, 1.6 Isabella, and we've got a 3.3 at Bodfish and a 2.6 at Bodfish. So, now down here in Southern California, including Kauai, that was named in that report, and I was so pleased that I knew where that was. We've got 49 here today, including this one in the ocean, a 2.2. Isla Vista, and a 2.2 near Carlsbad. What is this? We've got 3 right down here at Imperial. And then they're coming on around. And here's Kauai. This is the Anza region. And this is the I'm thinking, well, this is Borrego Springs. I would count that as it too. Okay, so we're seeing these small ones peppered around. So, according to that article, 450 in Southern California every day. That's not what we're seeing here. So there's a bunch of little ones. I'd be reporting all night if I had to report on all of those. Here's a 0.4 Park Field. Now we're coming up the San Andreas fault line. I saw those. Whoa, look at these. Here's a 3.6, 1.6, 1.4, 1.6, 2.3 at Bonnie Doon, 1.2 magnitude quarry blast, Loyola. Here is a 0.8 magnitude quarry blast at Clayton. Here's a 1.5 near Crockett, and 35 at the geysers today. These are mainly under twos. Let's see what we've got. Yeah, we don't have any 2.5 or higher at the geysers. So I think that's a wrap. So we had a lot of different activity to report on today, with a lot of big ones and medium ones and sizable earthquakes and ones in areas that we haven't seen before. Let's see if anything else came in. I saw that one at Ridgely, Tennessee. We saw that one at Sur Oman. We saw that one at Petrolia in Russia. I think that's a wrap. So I'm going to wind it up for tonight. And I recommend everyone get your spiritual houses in order while you still have a chance, because time is short. The end is near. The end is nearer for some than others, but the end is near. So God bless you. Go in peace, and good night.